What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I've talked about my childhood on this channel before, how I grew up and the things that I lived through and that made me what I am today. And I've talked about the fact that probably 80% of the time I was homeless. We lived in cars, we lived in tents, we lived in shacks, and very seldom had indoor plumbing or electricity. And this was about the first 17, 18, 19 years of my life. And like I said, it was 80% of the time it just became normal pretty much to live that way. In fact, just starting out, my mom told me a story that when I was just an infant, I don't remember how old I was, probably about 7 or 8 months old, that we lived in a one-room shack. And it was winter time, and there was no electricity in the house, and the walls had no insulation. It was just lumber put up, and you had the cracks between the lumber. With lumber, if you put lumber up and build anything with that and it's not seasoned out, and you build something, it shrinks and leaves cracks. And you have cracks anyway, but when you do it that way, it has even larger cracks. And we had a bed in the house. Well, it was actually a mattress, she said. It was just thrown onto the floor, and we were all sleeping in the bed. Myself, my mom, and my dad, and I was in the middle. And she said that the big snow came, and the next morning when we woke up, it had blown inside through the cracks in that shack, and there was snow actually in the bed where we were sleeping at. Most people here in the U.S. has not had to experience that. Granted, some has, but most people haven't had to experience that, and a lot of the kids now are spoiled. They don't know what it is to live that way, and a lot of the adults are the same way. You have adults now that their biggest thing is having the most up-to-date iPhone. If they can't have that, and this is adults, can't have that, they just feel terrible about themselves. Let them wake up with snow in the bed one morning and see how that feels. Unfortunately, I think it's going to go back to that very, very soon. If you take everything right now that's going on with the economy, with the border, with the potential for war, World War III between the United States, Russia, and China. We're already in a war. It's a proxy war, an economic war. I'm talking about a shooting war. If you take the corruption out of the federal government, you take everything and make everything good. Besides this green agenda that they're trying to put in, and we're still in for, some very severe times, very, very difficult, hard times in my opinion, with some widespread blackouts, because they're trying to put this in, this green energy, to replace fossil fuels. And they're trying to do this all at once. I don't think they'll ever be able to do it, period, with the energy that we require now. But they're trying to put this in, and they want it done, I think it's 90% before 2030, Agenda 2030. It's all coming down from the World Economic Forum, and we're going to have, a lot of rolling blackouts here in the United States, areas without power, areas with power. And this article here from Signs of Our Times, U.S. facing crisis of system-wide extensive blackouts, Energy Commissioner warns. And this isn't just me, this is the Energy Commissioner warning about these blackouts, because we can't supply, or they can't put in enough solar and wind infrastructure to supply the power that we need now. And they're wanting to get off gasoline, for example, diesel, and run all the cars and the trucks and the buses and everything through electricity. They want to make your home completely electric. They want to get rid of your gas stove, your cooking stoves. They want to get rid of your natural gas water heaters, for example. Everything they want to be electricity. So we're going to have more things on electricity, automobiles, trucks, cars, all drawing from that electricity, and they're going to have less electricity. And even now, right now, the way things are, we have blackouts. But here's the Energy Commissioner talking about this and predicting widespread blackouts and pretty much a grid collapse here in the United States to keep going the way that they want to go with this. This article states the United States is heading for a reliability crisis. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC Commissioner Mark Christie warned on May 4th in a hearing before the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. I do not use the term crisis for melodrama, but because it is an accurate description of what we are facing, Christie said. I think anyone would regard an increasing threat of system-wide, extensive power outages as a crisis. Extensive, system-wide power outages. That is definitely a crisis. The premature fossil requirements amid increasing demand for power are a result of Joe Biden's green energy initiatives in 2021's bipartisan infrastructure law and 2022's Inflation Reduction Act that incentivize investments in renewable energy. And this isn't Joe Biden's. This is actually the World Economic Forum's, the climate cult agenda. Biden is just going along with what they tell him to do. And we all know the Inflation Reduction Act had nothing to do with reducing inflation. That was all, a misnomer, as most things actually usually are. Without restoring balance in the nation's energy equation, that includes coal, natural gas, and oil, energy prices will skyrocket. Reliability will degrade, and families all across the country will suffer. More than 5,200 megawatts of oil, coal, and nuclear power plant energy generation were retired between 2013 and 2022, and another 5,000 megawatts of coal and oil-fired generation could be retiring in the coming years, according to the U.S. Energy Information Agency. Now listen to this, guys. Michigan, Texas, Indiana, and Tennessee will see the most coal-fired capacity retirements through 2029, before 2030, accounting for a combined 42% of energy generation in those 4 states that will need to be replaced, and they're not going to be able to replace that. But it came down to get this done by 2029. So, widespread blackouts, power outages, and a greatly lowered standard of living. With the power we have with electricity, it definitely increases our standard of living. Without electricity going, pretty much everything shuts down. And this is what is going to happen because they're doing this too quickly, and I don't think they can replace what we use now with these windmills and this solar power, much less the demand they're going to have 10 years from now if they get all this green agenda in with all these electric vehicles and getting rid of your gas stoves or gas hot water heaters and things like that. Natural gas is also leaving the grid faster than it is being replaced. In November, FERC anticipated 107 units of high probability natural gas units totaling 17,062 megawatt capacity would go online by September 25th. Over that same time span, however, 130 units totaling 17,489 megawatts of natural gas power will go offline. So what they're predicting to put online is going to be less than what's online right now. So that's not going to work, especially with increased demand. And we have the border wide open. Like I said, take that out of the equation, but it's still actually there. We're just using this for a thought experiment here. More people coming across the border, more energy needs, more charging stations for those electric automobiles. Foreign and domestic actors are testing their cyber defenses every day. Physical threats to the grid are on the rise, and extreme weather of all kinds is threatening power to customers across the country. That's a completely different topic, but it's still very important. We're going to already be facing shortages, blackouts, and things like that. And with people hacking into the system, things like that happening to shut things down, it's going to be even worse. Whilst incompetence indeed plays its part, and Joe Biden is definitely incompetent, it's telling as to how this part of the establishment agenda that the U.S. will soon be facing what Europe was threatened with this past winter. So, prepare for blackouts, prepare for no power. They will take, and more than likely, what will happen with this, and they don't care because they will still have their power. These government officials, these elites, just like in these third world countries, these impoverished nations, a lot of their leaders live high on the hog where the population is living in poverty. They will still have their power. They will still have their big screen televisions. They will have their electricity, their hot tubs and things like that, where everyone else will have nothing. And I think they will regulate the output of power by having widespread blackouts. This area here will have power for maybe 4 hours a day. This area will be offline. This area over here will get power. This area might be back online, or it might be for several days straight. Who knows how they're going to play this, but they're not going to be able to supply the power that we need through this green agenda, through this solar power and wind power. We saw what happened in Texas, how this shut down. A lot of the wind power, when it got cold, the snow came, froze up, everyone was without power, that power blackout. We're going to see that more and more. You know, during the summer, people will have to crank those air conditioners up and those heat pumps up to keep cool. In the winter, they have to crank that electric heat up, and there's going to be no more natural gas to heat your homes with, and it's going to put more drain on the system, so they can't supply now what we need. Sometimes we have blackouts now, especially, you know, during the summertime and things like that. But it's going to be even worse because they're going to have less power and more demand for that power. So get ready for these blackouts to come. And this is not even thinking about or talking about everything else that's going on. We are in for hard times here in the United States. We are in for a disaster. And it's not just Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a bumbling fool who doesn't have enough sense to go out and find his way back without being led back. He's been corrupt. He's still corrupt. His whole family's corrupt. We all know that. That's came out now, but we knew it already. But as far as pushing the blame all on that moron, it's really not. He's just a puppet of the globalist World Economic Forum that's pushing this climate cult agenda. And they're going to be living up here. Everyone else will be living down here. You know, I talk about the United States becoming a third world country. And I got an email about that the other day, and they was trying to correct me about a third world country meant that those countries were aligned with communist Russia at the time, or the Soviet Union. And that's where the name came from. But now, people talk about this, and definition has kind of changed, actually has changed depending on where you look, to being, you know, an impoverished nation with a low GDP. The United States is going to that low GDP, impoverished nation, tent cities, homelessness, unemployment, blackouts, power outages, crime through the roof, store shelves being randomly, moderately supplied and empty at different times depending on where you are, rationing, all kinds of things is coming, guys, and you got to be prepared for that. But these blackouts are definitely coming because they are doing this to the power grid on purpose. They're making the United States weaker on purpose. And if you haven't lived off the grid and you always wanted to, I think you're going to get your chance here very, very shortly. Anyway, if you liked the video, give it a big thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and go right over here and watch these other videos. Thanks for watching the Creekmore Mountain. I'll see you all in the next video, hopefully.